Okay, twirl time. Hey peeps, welcome to another video. Today it is the start of making the Vogue 9076 Dress of Dreams, which is the dress that I am currently wearing. Actually, I'm wearing it as a blouse. It looks really nice with the Cobra Corsage, this print does. So earlier this year I did a video of the behind the scenes of making this dress, my 70s dress of dreams. I do love this dress. I have worn it quite frequently since then. Loads of you guys have been asking for a sew along for this pattern for the longest time. So I have finally, I got this cut out in April. Today I'm going to start sewing it. Now I'm trying to do a sew along at the same time as this proper making of video, so we'll see how that goes. So the first thing I need to tell you guys about this pattern is that I really hated the skirt and how it went together. I've done version C's longer skirt with view A's cuffs, then without the little ties on the collar. So I'm doing pretty much the same bodice as I did before. It's view A's deeper cuffs because I prefer them than the not putting the bow on the collar. I do like it, I just know that I don't mind wearing it like this, and I just think that it might end up annoying me having to have that bow on there, as it were, so I've left it off. When I made this one, I've lengthened the bodice by an inch, which I will show you in the sew along, which will be coming soon. And the other thing is, I feel like all the details in this dress, because there's actually a yoke that goes here down the front and along the bottom here, I feel like the details get lost. Now in this one I used a really tiny ditzy print. It's actually a tiny little, it's called Petal Floral. I think it looks lovely. But for this second version I am using the teal Cobra Corsage Viscose Chalet from Lady McElroy. So this is a much larger print, but I have decided that I am going to add piping around these details so that it really stands out. I don't worry too much about the Cobra Corsage print and cutting it out and trying to pattern match, because I could drive myself crazy with that, and also it's because it's such a big print, you would need so much more fabric, and I feel it'd be really wasteful of fabric, so I tend to just cut it out and hope for the best. I do have a small remnant of it back here. If I do need to recut anything, I think I'll be able to for the bodice. Skirt definitely not, but for the bodice yes. So that is what I am going to be doing for the top part of this dress. The skirt on this thing is nice. It's full. It's not a full circle skirt, but it is full, but it's odd. It is odd. There is a centre front closure on this. It's like a concealed little placket that comes below the kind of button up at the bodice. You use press studs to finish that off. I didn't love the finish that I could achieve on the inside. I ended up binding the edge of this one, which is fine and it looks totally fine, but I don't like adding bias binding to the waistband or the waistline of dresses, because it can add up just that tiny little extra bit of bulk. I did use this same fabric to make my own bias binding, so it wasn't as bulky as some can be, but I wasn't a huge fan of how that actually went together. So for this iteration I've decided to put in a side zip. Now we all know how I feel about side zips, so that just shows you how much I disliked this method. The instructions for this are pretty good. I am substituting in a different skirt pattern for the sew along, so I hope you guys will forgive me for that. You can totally French seam the front of this with the little placket there. It's not difficult at all. That's not something I else was worried about, that I wasn't going to be able to use the seam finish that I like on the inside of this dress, but you can totally French seam it. The other weird thing is that it's gathered at the waist at the front and then completely smooth at the back. I just found it really odd, and whilst I like it and I wear it, obviously, it's not my favourite. So I'm going to substitute in the skirt from the 9328 Vogue pattern. I'm going to be doing view C, which is the midi length. There's either a maxi or a midi on this one, so I'm going to be doing the midi length one. There were a bunch of 3 patterns, this one, and the 9027 that I've been banging on about making for the longest time, and I finally got them all sewn up at the beginning of this year, and I love them all, different parts of them all. This one I love in total, but I really liked the skirt on this one, so I'm going to take the skirt from this one and smoosh it onto the bodice from this one, and that's what I'm going to be doing with the sew along. So I hope any of you guys who are going to be following the sew along will forgive me for not following the pattern exactly, but we all know know this is me, and I tend to not do that anyway. I realise I've been waffling for nearly 8 minutes of this as well. Too long an intro, whoops. So let's get started. The first thing that I need to do is cut out my interfacing for the yoke pieces. So I need to interface the little collar, the yokes and the waistband and the cuffs. I have cut out and ironed on all my interfacing, as you've just seen. I have just made the bias strips that I've cut out of the 1.5 inch wide strips of black viscose into a full length and pressed those seams open. Now I need to decide if I'm going to make it into flat piping or traditional piping with some cording in it. I mean, technically it would be with string because I don't actually have any cording appropriate for piping. This is the only reason I'm thinking it might be a bad idea, is because I am worried that when I wash this dress, this might not behave itself as well as I would like it to. It wouldn't be washed frequently. It's not going to be something that's thrown in the washing machine all the time, but I'm still a little bit wary about using this. The other thing is with flat piping, because this is cut on the bias, it'd be really easy to stretch it and have the flat piping then not come out even on the final dress, which is something that is going to be really obvious because it's in black and the dress is in teal, so it's going to really stand out. Whereas if I do have the cording in it, even if I have stretched it out in certain places and it ends up with a slightly wider seam allowance than I am necessarily going for, because the cord's in it, it would be really easy to make sure that it's even the whole way around, which I think has pretty much persuaded me to put the string in and just hope for the best. We'll see. This is a viscose dress. I wash it at 30 degrees and I line dry it. I don't tumble dry it, so I'm just hoping that this will behave itself. It would be nice to have 1/8 inch cording, but I have no idea how that washes either, so let's give this a try and see how we go. Okay, I have got my piping and I've also got my rouleau loops made. I'm going to go and press those flat so I can turn them into button loops. I think the next thing that I'm going to work on is the skirt, because as you guys know, bias cut skirts do like to drop, and there is a little bit of bias in this particular skirt, although I think when I made it back in January, I don't think I actually had to level that hem at all. I'm still going to give it a chance to do its thing because I'd rather give it more time than less time, and we all know that some of my skirts have ended up hanging for 6 months and I definitely don't want that for this dress, so I'm going to get that done next. French seam spaghetti, so I can now go and press these all flat so I can finish off the French seams. There are loads of different methods that you can use to finish the seam allowance of your skirt pieces or your dress pieces or your whatever you're making pieces. I personally prefer French seams, and that is purely and simply because I was terrified of my overlocker for the longest time. It sat in a cubbyhole for 5 years taunting me, and I learnt to use French seams to finish off the insides of my garments because I was literally terrified of the overlocker. Now it is just a personal preference. I use my overlocker for making knit garments, but for woven garments I will always either French seam, bias bind, or sometimes pink the edges. Whichever method you prefer you can use to finish off the inside seams of your skirt, but for me, French seams. I have a skirt. I have a very nice skirt. I do love this fabric. I mean, you guys know that. You've seen this. I've been making this fabric all of this year so far. Well, I started on the 8th of February. But yeah, I have a skirt. I have a really, really nice skirt. It's nice and full, but still skimming at the same time, which I know a lot of you guys have been telling me that I should go for stuff that's more fitted over my hips rather than the very, very full skirts that I like, just because it is more slimming. Every now and again, sure, but I do tend to wear the fluffier skirts to make my hips and my butt look bigger so that it makes my waist look smaller in comparison. But I will be wearing this dress with a belt. I know that's going to bug some of you, but I like belts. I've got one on today, and I think because of all the piping I'm going to put on, the black piping, I think a black belt on this is going to look really, really nice. So I'm going to get this hung up and move on to the sleeves. Day 2. Sleeve time. Well, before I make some sleeves, I need to make some bias binding, but then sleeve time.
A few moments later.
Bias binding. So I have 16 meters here, which is awesome. I was expecting it to be a little more, but I suppose 16 meters out of 60 centimeters, 140 wide, it's not bad. I marked it all out on the fabric with my friction pen and 2-inch ruler. This is 2-inch wide bias binding, and then I use my little bias binder maker. I have a set of these. I love these. I will link them in the description down below, to actually make or iron this into the double fold bias tape. It's once I'd cut all this out and was sewing the pieces together that I realised that this time I probably could have done the continuous bias binding method. Usually when I make bias binding, it's out of offcuts of circle skirts and things like that, so there's usually kind of like really odd pieces that method really wouldn't work for, but this one totally could have done that, and it would have saved me a whole bunch of individual sewing of seams and ironing open of seams. But never mind, I still have my 16 meters of bias binding, which I'm going to use to finish off the edges where the zip's going to go into the skirt, and then also to hem the skirt. Oh, I think this one is going to need to be levelled. Looking at it, there are some dips and hems in there, so we should, dips and hems? Dips of the hem, words are hard. So yes, once that's been levelled, I will then use this to finish that off. Right, okay, moving on to sleeves. Now it's time for sleeves. I have sleeves! I have finished sleeves with cuffs. The only thing they need is their buttons and obviously to be sewn to a bodice, which I am going to start making now. I need to remember that I am putting a side zip into this thing, so I need to not quite follow the instructions and remember to leave the left side open, because that's the side of the skirt that I've left open. So yeah, but bodice time, here we come.
Day 3.
Okay, there's no putting it off anymore. I have to attach the piping. So I've got all my yoke pieces prepared. I've got my piping prepared. Let's give this a try. It's starting to look like a bodice. I really like those lines of piping. I'm really glad that I went to the effort of putting those in. Not the easiest, but definitely doable. Just take your time and go slowly when you're putting them in, basically. But yeah, I think it's going to look really nice. Okay, so now I need to repeat all of those steps with the lining pieces. Fun times. I have a bodice, I have 2 sleeves, and I have a skirt. So I'm just going to put the bias binding onto the side of the skirt, which will mean that I can add it to the dress, which will mean I can put the zip in, which will then mean I can put the sleeves on. So this dress is almost done. Actually, I've changed my mind. I'm going to sew up the top inch of this side seam, and then I'm going to put the sleeves in, because that means I can finish the sleeves, or I can bag out the lining, so that will all be done. Then I'm going to put the skirt on. It's just going to be a little bit more difficult to sew the zip in, but if needs be, I can put the top of it in by hand. I'm in the process of finishing off the lining of my sleeves, and it's got to the point where I have to cut it with my pinking shears, and this is always a little nerve-wracking because I have in the past clipped into the sleeve by accident and left a giant hole in it, so I'm going to be really careful while I do this. Wish me luck.
Day 4.
Slight flaw in the plan, or delay to the proceedings. I have 6 of these buttons and I need 14. I've ordered 3 more packs, which supposedly were delivered on Monday, but we cannot find them. So they've been reordered and they don't have any stock of them, so they won't be here till the 18th of July. Which means I can't finish my dress because I don't have any other buttons that would work. The dog's down here inspecting. I don't have any other buttons that will work. I really want to use these small self-covered ones, and I don't, like I say, don't have any more. I will make these ones up, sew the 5 down the front, 1 onto the cuff, and then finish the hem and just put this to the side, wait for the next lot to come in so that I can get it done. Which sucks, but never mind. Well, that wasn't the most fun I've ever had in my life. That was 8 attempts to get 6 buttons. The fabric is really just literally just frays as you're sewing it. So that was fun, but now I'm going to mark their placement on the dress and get the 5 sewn onto the front and 1 sewn onto one cuff, and then when the rest come we can finish it. Buttons have worked. So I'm going to get the hem hemmed with the bias binding that I made earlier, and then put this to the side to wait for its buttons. But yeah, pleased with this, very pleased with this. Thankfully the hem didn't need levelling, it was totally fine, so I could directly sew the bias binding on and then finish it by hand. It's done! Except for the buttons. But it's done! And I really like it. I'm going to put this to the side and I will be back who knows when to finish it off and show you the reveal.
2,000 years later.
It's finally finished! Ooh, wow. The buttons have arrived, I've made them up, I've put them on, I really like them. I do really like the black piping. I think it brings out the details of the yoke. I think if I when I make this again, I'm going to put some piping around the cuffs and around the collar, and I'm even thinking maybe around that front edge as well. I don't want to overdo things though, but yeah, I definitely think around the collar, the cuffs. I'm not going to put it on at the waistband. I do have a belt on with it today, which is the only black belt that I have, and I don't think it's quite the right one. I think it needs to be narrower, and if I can find one suede, or possibly having one made from the rayon that I made this piping and covered the buttons with, and I do have enough of that left that I could get that done, which is a definite possibility because I think it would be quite a useful piece in my wardrobe. I really like the combination of these two patterns together. It's the 9076 and the 9328. I have that right. I think I have that right. I do like this combination together. I'm still not 100% happy with the dress. If this dress was a test piece to try out for the fruity print fabric that I have back here, I have 3 meters of that fabric. I cannot get any more of it. I absolutely love it. This fabric is definitely not cheap, is something that I can get more of, so I was slightly willing to experiment with this. I knew I liked the bodice, I knew I liked the skirt. I do like them together. I'm not going to put the sew along out for this combination because I'm not happy with it. Not 100% happy with it. The side zipper instead of the front skirt placket works really, really well, and I can get in and out of this dress with the buttons fully buttoned up along the front. I much prefer the side zipper to the front placket that the original skirt comes with, but it's still not my favourite. And I think that I want to try for my next iteration, because there will be another one, I think I want to try for the next time making it a fully button up shirt dress. What is the definition of a shirt dress? What does a shirt dress, does a shirt dress have to have a collar and collar stand? Because this has got technically the collar stand, just no collar added to it. But yeah, there's a few more things that I want to change. I really liked fully lining this. I much prefer this fully lined, and I will do some close-ups of the interior of this dress for you because I know you guys like to see those. I just think that not fully lining the bodice of this just gives you a load of hand sewing to do, which again is totally doable if it's your preferred option. You know, very, very easy to do. Just turn under the seam allowance, press it down and slip stitch it into place. For the next one, I'm going to do something slightly different for the lining of this, which is again another reason why I am not going to be putting out the sew along for this particular variation of it. I do really love the silhouette. I really like this one. I will wear this one. I just think I can make it slightly better and slightly more what I'm looking for. So whilst I'm very pleased to have this dress done, and it is the last piece of Cobra Corsage that you will be seeing for a while, there will be yet another iteration of this dress, which will hopefully then turn into a sew along. Given that it's a long sleeve dress, that's probably not going to happen until the cooler months, so end of September, beginning of October. So I do apologise, but a sew along for the 9076 will be coming to you at some point when I'm happy with how I'm putting it together, because at the moment not so much. So will I make this dress again? Yes I will, at least 2 more times. One more wearable muslin, and then fingers crossed I can finally cut into that super precious to me fruity fabric and get my dress of dreams sewn up. We shall see. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of this iteration, which is your favourite, the original or this skirt, or do you like both? And do you do the same thing that I do? When you find a bodice that you like, just bung it onto any kind of bottoms that you come across. This would not work for a jumpsuit. I don't, it might, getting in and out of it might be a bit difficult because of, yeah, you'd need a real, yeah, I don't think it would work for trousers, but there's definitely many different options of skirts that you can put onto this bodice. I have a feeling that once I have worked out my favourite, that I will be making quite a few of these because I do really enjoy this look. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below what you think. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye!